Hey, welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
If you're gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there, my amazing listener. Welcome and thank you for tuning in to episode 284 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, for lending me your ears today. I know you have lots of choices of things you could be doing right now, and I really do appreciate you making my podcast one of those choices. Now, earlier this year, I ran a webinar all around marketing in 2024, what's working, what's not working, what's changing. And so I thought today I would do part one of that webinar and share with you just 3 things, because I don't want to overwhelm you, just 3 things you need to be thinking of when it comes to your marketing this year. There'll be 3 really interesting things. Some of them will stretch your thinking, and some of them you might nod along and go, yeah, Jen, I realised this, but, and we'll get to the buts as well. But before we get to that, I just wondered, did you listen into my conversation last week with Katrina Myers? Our chat was all about taking better care of yourself, something I think many of us, including myself and maybe yourself, many of us small business owners can do better at that. And although I talk a lot about marketing and growth in your business, if you're not taking care of yourself, then not much is going to go right for you. My business is definitely family first, and now I'm trying to make it me first, along with family first. It's a bit of a lesson in 2024, given the bad run I had into the end of 2023, of which I may talk about a little bit later on another podcast episode. But if you haven't listened to my chat with Katrina, head back to episode 283 when you're finished here with me today. Now, have you got yourself a copy of my book as well, Small Town, Big Impact? If you haven't got a copy of that, then feel free to head to my website at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au and not download it and get a copy of it there. There's 107 different marketing strategies in that book, so it's well worth its read. And plus, it's been written that if you don't want to read the whole book, you don't have to. You can kind of flick open a couple of pages, have a read of a strategy, work out whether it's right for you, right for your business, and go ahead and test and measure it. Like, it's not a read to cover. You can, but you don't have to. So if you're not a great reader, it is still a great book for you to have a bit of a look at. Okay, so like I said, 3 things that I wanted to talk to you about marketing in 2024 to keep your eye on. So the first one is, it's something I'm pretty passionate about, and it's something you're going to hear me talk a lot about this year, and that's that audiences are dead. Or at least audiences dying. Like, seriously, if you are consistently chasing an audience rather than building a community, you are going to find it, frankly, harder and harder to survive in business. So for me, an audience is something I talk at. So I stand on stage and I talk at people. I'm not absorbing these people into my community. I'm actually talking at them. Whereas a community is something I'm involved in. Community is something like, yes, I'm the leader of a community, but the community is interacting with each other as well. They're chatting to each other. They're cheering each other on. They're, rising tide lifts all boats. Like, building that community is what you need to be doing. Just having an audience just isn't going to cut it anymore. So one of the things you need to be thinking about in your business is how are you creating an audience? How are you not creating an audience, but creating a community, something people will want to belong to. It is in our human nature that we want to belong to something. So what are you doing with that in your business? The second thing I wanted to talk to you about is something that is probably the bone of your existence, bane of your existence, and it's probably mine as well, and that is TikTok and Reels. Can I just say that I'm going to make a run for TikTok this year? I'm really going to try and have a good go at it. I had a partial go at it last year. I think this year I'm going to have a good crack at it and see whether it's really a platform for me and my audience or not. So stay tuned with that one. But quite frankly, TikTok and Reels aren't going away anytime soon. The dancing and singing and producing content to trending music has certainly stopped. And I really feel that if that's your strategy still and you're not seeing the results you used to, well, that's because we've all moved past that. We've moved past watching someone dance and sing and just put a ridiculous video to trending music. So again, we need to think about the strategies that we are using. And I would really encourage you to be showing up with your thought leadership, showing up with your expertise, showing up as you, like sharing a bit more of you. It comes back to this community building. If you're building pieces of content, what part of it is building community? What part of it is sharing your thought leadership or your expertise? I really find that these are the strategies that are going to work this year. And if it's overwhelming, you're thinking, Jen, TikTok and Reels, seriously, then I want you to consider two things. First thing, is my audience actually watching them? And if the answer to that is yes, think about how you could make a series of content rather than just random content. Videos that have a continuous theme work really well, especially on TikTok, because that is how the algorithm works. If someone watches your video, it's going to show up the next video not too far down their feed. And if that is a continuation of the video they've just watched, they're more likely to watch it. So what is that content, that serialized content that you can create? Pick a topic and break it up into little tiny videos and share it potentially on TikTok or in your Reels. Of course, if your people aren't watching Reels or TikTok, then just enjoy them as you. Don't bother producing content for them because your people aren't there. That's just the definition of insanity, producing content that no one's going to watch because your people aren't there. But side note on that, just make sure your people aren't there. I think assumption is the killer of a lot of small businesses. And we look at stats and we're like, oh, TikTok, it's just for the young people. Well, it's not. Let me tell you, it's not. I can't guarantee you your people are there or aren't there unless we have a bit of a conversation. But I would do some research before you snob a platform or the strategy such as TikTok or Reels. So just be sure about all of that. And number 3 is 2 words to live by this year, and they are repurpose and retarget. So repurpose your content, especially if you've been producing content for a while. You don't need to keep producing more and more and more and more content, especially if some of that content has worked well for you. What have you got in your content folder that you can repurpose? Maybe something you did 2 years ago that worked really well and that you can repurpose. Maybe it's Easter content or Mother's Day content or Labor Day weekend content. Maybe it is just content from something, a program that you had or a product that you sold way back then that you're reselling now. Think about what you've got to repurpose. I promise it'll make your life so much simpler. And retargeting, where's your warm traffic? Where's the people who already know, like, and trust you, that have already visited your website, that have already, joined your social media, or they're on your email list? How are you retargeting these people? These people already half know, like, and trust you. Why aren't you producing content for them and using strategies to get them further into your funnel to be a paying customer than worrying about continually finding brand new people? So some ideas for repurposing could be having an email marketing strategy, get them on your list, remarket to them that way. Or maybe you could even upload your email list to Meta and serve ads direct to those people. Again, they're warm traffic. Or run Google and Meta retargeting ads for traffic that's been on your website in the last 30 days, last 60 days, last 120 days, whatever that looks like for your business. And of course, it depends on where you're selling rhythm is and what sort of a sales system you're into at the moment, or the sales processes you're doing at the moment. So they're my 3 things that I want you to think about. Audiences are dead. Build a community. Stop trying to build a bigger audience. Consider TikTok and Reels, and consider actually having a series of content for there rather than just random content. And think about what you've got that you can repurpose. And of course, think about your retargeting strategy as well. Otherwise, you know what? That's it for episode 284. I really hope you liked this episode. It was a bit of a quick episode, but I hope you still found it really valuable. I would love for you to leave it a rating and a review if you can, where you're listening to this, especially in Apple Podcast. And if you have a friend who might listen to this podcast, can I ask you a huge favor? Can you share it with them, or can you put a post up on your social saying, I really like listening to Jen's Small Business Made Simple podcast. Maybe you should have a listening to, because that would mean the world to me. Yeah, it just would, because I would really like to get to know your communities like you get to know me and my communities all the time. And remember, of course, if you need help, you need to actually ask for help. And one of the places you can do that is joining my Like-Minded Business Owners Facebook group. If you're not a member already, come and find that group on Facebook. Otherwise, I'm going to see you next week on episode 285. Let's make sure we're hanging out on social and get social on social. It's kind of the reason why we're there, is to be social. But whatever you do, remember, my small business peep, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.